Hey guys, welcome to episode 7 of Into the Rift. Today I am joined by Dave Troop, Camille Mai, John Crichton, and Thomas Watts. Not Stephen Watts like I called him last episode. I'm really sorry for that. Okay, so this episode we're mainly going to be talking about the games in the semi-finals. So Samsung White versus Samsung Blue, Star Horror Club versus OMG. We're going to have a bit of like a discussion and predictions on the actual finals. So Star Royal Club versus Samsung White. I doubt they'll watch this. After that, we're going to finish off with some Q&As like we usually do and talk a bit about the roster changes like Amazing leaving and Dexter leaving and stuff like that. Okay, so the first topic we're going to get into is Samsung White versus Samsung Blue in the semi-finals. Game 1 we'll talk about. We'll start with Game 1 because we saw Samsung White versus Samsung Blue have an early skirmish on the bot lane, and something that I picked up from this was the fact that Hart was nowhere to be seen in this fight, but Mata was there with Janna, and that is a huge thing. Like, the fact that Janna can support everyone despite the fact that mid lane are nearly dying, and that's not the only thing. Like, with Akali teleporting down bottom, Samsung Blue weren't prepared and had no pings or anything for Akali. They just weren't ready for this fight at all. Do you guys think that this was a case of Samsung Blue not being prepared for this gank, or a well-thought-out strategy from Samsung White?
To me, it just looked like the whole thing, like they still weren't really expecting the Akali pick, right? And it happened right when Akali hit 6, and they had done a good job up until that point, kind of keeping her down. So I just really don't think they were ready for that. Like, I'm still trying to figure out why they picked Varus too, because he wasn't 6 for that fight, so he didn't have the Chain of Corruption, but Akali did have the ult. So it's kind of just like, I don't know. And then Blue forced it too, and then White was counter ganked, right? If I recall correctly. So
yep,
to me, it was like it was almost like the perfect example of the entire series. Like, Blue would kind of start something, do a play, and either bite off more than they could chew or just not execute it properly, and then White would just turn it around, snowball the game off that one play.
Well, I kind of agree that the Akali pick definitely threw them off a bit. And the Varus pick, although I actually liked the Varus pick to a certain extent, I think they needed something to initiate with because they really had nothing. They had Zilean, they had Lee, so the Lee Sin Yasuo combo could have worked, but, didn't. In the end, 0-7-2 let's say not the best performance ever, but they needed something. And they even at one point had a gank where Deft flashed into ult someone. I think it went into Pound, but Pawn is actually just too good and he flashed away. But it's not about big necessarily. I do agree that they were really unprepared, but it was throughout the whole series, I was kind of convinced that White had exactly every part of the game strategized better. They had the first dragon at, I don't know, 6 minutes, 10 seconds or something. They just controlled everything throughout the game. In the first game, Blue didn't get any dragons, to 4 dragons from White. They didn't get any barons, to 1 baron from White. And they just got 2 towers, where they actually needed to push out a bit further to get at least the early boost. Because let's be honest, they didn't have the composition to fight them at 6 or 8, 9, whatever. So yeah, I think just White was better prepared for the game. That's all there is to the first game.
Well, I look at the overall series, and I think Game 1 in many ways was a... John, your chair's killing me, buddy.
Yeah, yes.
Sorry. I'm going to get some oil for it, man.
No, I think that Game 1 was kind of a microcosm of the entire series. That Dave alluded to this. And I realize I am kind of Monday morning quarterbacking this by saying it, but it almost makes sense after the fact that Blue went down, because what Blue makes a lot of hay off of, what they had a lot of success with, throughout the champion season, multiple champion seasons where they were strong, was they would come up with one thing that the other team wouldn't be able to deal with. And I believe on the cast it was Acorn's Maokai was used as an example. And with it being on patch 4.14 for so long, that how do you innovate when everyone else has basically played almost everything? Yes, absolute credit to Looper with that Akali pick out of nowhere, but Looper has also been so good at this tournament. He could pick whatever the hell he wants and probably dominate on it. He's within like a half point of matching Pawn's KDA for the entire thing. It's just his stats are nuts.
Yeah, he's
But
played out of his mind.
but I think the inability to innovate anymore really put Blue behind the eight ball, and you just see it all the time. They couldn't get that one little shot they needed to come back into the game. White just crushed them.
Just because if you look at it, like it's almost like Blue knew that that's their strength too, because they even tried. Like they got desperate. Like the Varus didn't really make any sense, and the Galio into a double AD comp made even less sense. Like, I mean, I understand for the poke, but they had a poke comp. They don't have a dive your turret comp. They didn't need to hard dive you. So it's like the Galio just didn't seem to make too much sense to me there, and it's almost like they were grasping for straws because they knew that they wouldn't be able to beat White straight up without an innovative pick, and they just couldn't come up with one.
Speaking of picks, I want to focus on John right now because he's obviously got a lot of experience within like coaching, challenger scene, so he knows a lot about the game. John, what did you make of the Akali pick from Looper and the Varus pick from Def? Did you see any reason why they picked that?
Basically, they'll try to throw them off in some form of way. You know, like if they went for something conventional, then they would probably get outmatched, like just individually. So we always see Blue come up with something that's new and innovative as such. So as Thomas said, the patch has been dragged out that long. There's not much left, you know. So like bringing out the Galio and stuff like that is probably stuff they've been practicing for weeks, but it get counteracted by the fact that you know they had like nearly a full AD team, and I don't know. I don't like the picks personally. The Akali, right? That's okay. It's just like a queen up champ. I've seen it a few times in the challenger scene. I think it was What the Fox was playing it in some tournaments, and it looked okay. I mean, he plays mid though, not top. But I mean, Akali's like a tool. She's just a pure damage tool that will reset and jump around the fights, you know. So it's totally fine. More so the Galio, I didn't like. Like a Malphite or something would fill the same role as such, but would tank a lot better, you know. Because the way that they're playing with the Chase, you need that hard engage to sort of get into the fights, and it looked like they were trying to do that with like the Flash Galio, but they had the Janna as well for the disengage, and I don't know, it didn't make sense to me. I think there was a lot better picks available. Like one thing that I would have took from the games, like, is why didn't they go for like a Nocturne Orianna or something like that to provide the hard engage, and then you know like go for the team fight off that? It's quite heavy. I think Nocturne's actually a really good champ against White for multiple reasons. It counteracts like a 1-3-1. It's good in lane swaps because you get the farm that you need. You're not getting invaded. You usually get like the support of the top laner is going around the jungle with you. So it's like the ideal situation to be putting that champ into the game, you know?
When you talk about people being outclassed, in the past, Samsung Blue have been known to always beat Samsung White because they're a better team instead of Samsung White just having loads of individual star players. However, it was pretty obvious that Samsung White seemed to completely outclass Samsung Blue in these games. Do you think that will stick, or do you think that this is a one-off thing and Samsung Blue made some major mistakes?
It depends how the adaptation is, right? Like Samsung White, as Thomas said again, like they've had a long time to adapt to this patch and find out what's for them the best, and that's going with the sort of Jace poke comps and whatever, right? When it comes into the new season, like it's going to completely change, and Blue have adapted like a lot faster in general than other teams. So it depends how well White progress with that, you know. Like if they go on and they win the world championships and then they decide they want to keep going, keep being at the top, you know, that hunger's there, then you might see them dominating in Korea for another 6 months or so until the next team props up. But for me, I reckon White versus Blue will go back the way again in the new season. just because I don't think they've got that adaptation there, you know?
I'm
Anyone
gonna
else like that?
No, I agree. I think that blue is if there had been a 4.14 to 4.15 change like at the brackets, that would have completely changed this series. As is, white did what they wanted to do. They want to punch you early. Once they jump on you because you make a mistake, they beat you. That has been Samsung White since Pawn and Dade switched. And how has Blue been able to beat them before that? They would take the shot, but then they'd get back up and they'd swing back. That's what Blue has done historically. That's why Blue has really owned White up until this series. But in this series, White found that little extra gear that they needed to really overwhelm Blue. And it's not even I don't even think Blue played horrifically. And what I mean by that is I'm going to go to game 3. And with that dive that they got on the bottom lane where they tried to transition it into a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Samsung White dove in, man down, and broke up that dragon. If Blue gets that, totally different game. And it's not something I do not feel like many teams would engage man down on Samsung Blue after Samsung Blue just hit them in the mouth. So absolute credit to White, but just because Blue got absolutely dominated in this series doesn't change the fact that this is a ridiculously strong team.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Spirit played really badly too. He missed a couple smites, and then Pawn has been playing absolutely incredibly this tournament. He is known for his ability to 1v1 faker, but I mean he doesn't normally dominate OGN this much. He's been playing his Jace games were insane. He had Muramana or Manamune, Last Whisper, and a Brutalizer at 15 minutes or 20 minutes with Lucidity Boots multiple times. That's insane. He was so far ahead, it was crazy. And we've never really seen him play like this. So yeah, I don't know if White will be able to stay this dominant over Blue in the future, but who knows if Blue will even exist.
If they do any sort of tournament MVPs and it is not Pawn or Looper, someone needs to have their eyes checked and they need to get removed from the voting panel. Those two, no, seriously, those two players have been so far ahead of the curve compared to everyone else. Yes, even better than the North American god mids. That it's just not even close. Looper's KDA is through the roof. Pawn's KDA through the roof. I mean, the guys have just been going nuts. And you can get a lot of mileage out of power solos. Sorry, Amber, go ahead.
Speaking of Pawn, before Worlds actually started, there was all of this data hype, Dada is the best mid in the whole world and everything like that. I mean, Riot didn't even put Pawn in their top 20 players at Worlds. Let's just take that in for a second.
Yeah, but there's
Yes.
more to consideration.
And you're
with
basically calling me out because I have the LoL esports tag on. But go ahead.
Bringing up the Pawn versus Dade argument, it looked kind of like Dade wasn't playing at the level we usually see him in OGN, for the whole of Worlds, in my opinion, personally. How do you guys feel about Dade versus Pawn? Do you still think that Dade is the best mid laner in the world, like everyone else? Or
I don't think you can say that based on this series, because if you want to take into consideration how affected the mid lane is by the lane swaps and by the players that are around them, you know what I mean? How can you compare Dandy and Spirit? Dandy is above everyone else in the jungle. No one comes close. And then you've got Mata versus Hart. As you said, at the start of the show, Hart decided to go mid lane when it was getting sieged by a Twitch. You know what I mean? A Twitch alone against a Varus who can wave clear with just Q&E. And Zillion's decided to go down the mid lane instead of going bot where there's a skirmish waiting to happen. You can say is that communication issues or whatever, but when you've got that support behind you with the jungler and obviously the support, it's kind of hard to say, oh, this mid's better, you know?
Yeah, I
I'm
think
just
that
gonna throw in a statistic real fast of in the Samsung White versus Samsung Blue series, Dade actually did half of the damage of Pawn over all 3 games.
a bit
Discuss.
below. There was 27k to 60.
Picky.
Yeah, but I think Dade has one fundamental problem right now, and it's gonna it's gonna be a consistent problem from now on. He kind of got so hyped and so known for being the all-star player. He is forced to pick those heavy playmaking champions. So he picked TF to roam around the map and win all the lanes, which he did in the past, but now it didn't work out. Also, he needs to play those high-impact champions. And I don't think that was the way to go against Poon and against White at all. So, obviously, this series Poon was just insanely better. You can't really compare those two in those series, especially when Dandy played Rengar. That was just a slaughter fest. It's just ridiculous. At one point, there wasn't really any chance of getting back into the game for Dade. He was basically trying to make plays, not even farming, just making plays, and everyone in blue wanted to make plays, which when you're so far behind, it didn't work out and looked kind of desperate. Obviously, it may change, but I don't agree with the statement that blue will return to being the better team because they're more innovative, because it must have been something must have been done in White's preparation that they caught up to the other teams and they even went ahead. And I think from now on it won't be this huge blue. The first week after the patch, blue comes out with something amazing. It's going to be either both teams come up to the same thing or they come up to the different things but similarly OP. So I don't necessarily think blue will ever go up to the standard they were presenting before. They will be probably around the same level. It's never gonna be the history of, okay, blue is playing white, so blue's gonna win. No one will ever be able to say that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just like Pawn just counters aggression, right? And like that's why he does so well against Faker. And Dade had to play aggressive in the series for the most part, because let's be honest, his other teammates didn't do so well. Neither did he, though. I mean, his Yasuo was known to be really scary, and he just wasn't scary. Like, I don't know. It was really reminiscent for me of that first Zed game he had where he just did not play well on Zed at all and lost to Pekezari when everybody he's such a good Zed. And it was almost like that, even though he did play Yasuo well in this tournament. I don't know. It's Def seems to also be a little bit crumbly under pressure. Like he kind of really, you could tell after game 2, the look on his face was just a complete and utter like despair. So, but I still think blue can come back. I'm a blue fanboy. Mm-hmm. I believe.
I think it would be fair. I think it would be fair just to jump in. The series is not going to be blue's going to beat white in history. It's now going to be a series where you'll have to break down, is there a potential innovation, and does that counteract, instead of being what should be, what I guess you could say was a blue landslide given their previous 2 victories, now it's something where you're like, damn, this series is going to be good no matter what, and anybody can. At this point, it's anybody's game given White's past win. I think that would be the fairest way to put it. Do you agree, Camille?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, probably the story of the next games between those two teams will be kind of, let's see who gets the better season so far. It's going to be judged like that, because if Dade goes to like 20-0, 20 game, people will go towards blue. But, it's going to be like that. Who's more flashy before the game? That's how people will judge it from now on.
Okay, I have another question for RNG. Talking about the Galio pick, because we've covered about the Varus pick and about the Akali pick. We want to know a bit about Galio, because we see Samsung Blue pick Galio into 3 ADs and a spell shield, which doesn't seem to make much sense at all. Can you make any sense of this pick?
As I said before, it's probably just something they've practiced and they thought this strategy will work for them against white, The thing is, see, when you practice as a team, you practice for weeks, like certain comps for certain matchups. Like, you either play with that or you go completely off the rails. Now, their coach will have most likely told them what to play. I think that's how it works in Korea. The coach tells the players, look, this is what you're playing, take that. So they've obviously been told before the game what they're going to do, and they've just went with it, you know what I mean? Instead of being like, oh shit, they've got like a ton of AD, let's change up the Galio pick. They've just went ahead with it, done what they're told. And
you don't think that there was any strategic decision behind the Galio pick? You think they've just been practicing it, so we'll bring it out in game 3 because we're desperate, because we're in an awful position right now and we're probably going to lose?
Yeah, I think it's something that's been pre-planned before the series that they've been practicing on, and they've just decided like now it's time to pull it out.
So you don't
Camille,
think
do you want to say something about it? Because I saw you like
No,
put your
nothing.
hand.
Just saying that it was game 2 with the Galio, not the game 3.
Yeah, it was game.
But-
Game 2, sorry.
but you don't think so you don't think the players had any conscious decision in it at all? Like you think they were told to play Galio and then they looked at a Rengar Jace and were like, "Yep, guess we're playing Galio."
Well,
Yeah, well,
how
you
else
must
can
have
you
got-
argument it?
Yeah, there's no other sense to make of it. You telling me these players that were the best team in Korea have turned around and seen this team and then they went, "Oh, that Galio seems a logically good choice. I think we should go with that." You know, magic resist tank. That's
Well, I just have a hard time imagining that the players decided at that moment, like, yeah, the coach still wants us to play Galio.
Yeah, mate, it's happened before. Kakao came out before, did they not, when he was told to play Nocturne in a series? And he's like, "Oh man, I hate the coach for telling me to play this." Like, that's the way it works in Korea. The coaches are above the players and determining what goes on. So, in terms of picks and bans, I don't put any of the blame on the players. I put it on the coaches. Huh?
Mhm. Does anyone else have anything to say on the Galio pick before we move on to the next games?
That was just silly.
Yeah, I
It
comment.
had wave clear. That was the only wave clear, but it was supposed to be on the side lane to teleport in. It was supposed to be a hard engage, which didn't work out at all. Just silly pick. And,
Yeah, it was just
you know,
bad. Just really
Yeah.
bad. Really, really bad.
I think they were
That was-
tilting after game 1, to be honest, after how hard they got destroyed by Samsung White.
Yeah, that whole series just looked like they just devolved over the course of it. And then, like, game 3, they actually had, like, a good start. They're like, "Oh, yay, we did something. Let's get drag." And then 4 for 1. Drag goes, they lose drag. Like, oh, never mind.
Yep.
We're losing this one, too.
Okay, so that's enough about Samsung White versus Samsung Blue. We're going to move on to OMG versus Starhorn Royal Club. So these games were a little bit more exciting than the previous games because they were a lot closer and it wasn't just an absolute 3-0 stump where we were all like, wish Samsung White would win this game so I can go to sleep. Okay, so the first game of Starhorn Royal Club versus OMG. We saw the skirmish around Blue Buff, which was one of the bigger points of the game because Starhorn Royal Club ended up losing their blue to OMG. I think that a big thing about this was the fact that OMG was so aggressive about it. I mean, they had the Thresh pick and Cloud just went in. He just went in like later on when Blue was up, and he just flayed them and started the fight. And like, despite the fact that he got out, like even though it was low health, it got them that blue and it got them that early advantage that they needed. So, do you guys think that there's anything differently that Starhorn Royal Club could have done in the early game to change the way that the game ended up?
no, definitely there was the blue steel was one thing, but you know that happens. You move on. But there was this. I think 3 or 4 minutes later, there was a gang bottom, where Kola actually teleported down to help. And it didn't really do anything, but he lost teleport, and by this point, Going was 30 CS ahead. He was like 45 CS to 15 on Ramble. And from there on, Kola couldn't handle him anymore in the lane. So Going was just farming and getting stronger. That was the problem. That I think the teleport from top to bottom without getting anything from the teleport was the main problem. So from there on, it just kind of snowballed out of control. Uzi was doing fine, but Uzi got caught as well a few times because he's a maniac and he wants to make the plays. But it doesn't always work. And yeah, I think that the teleport was more important than the blue itself.
Looking at the two compositions in this game, I don't know what Starhorn was thinking. Ultra scaling versus a brutal team fight comp. I absolutely understand when the picks were locked in. I'm like, if OMG gets 2 good picks, this game's over. Lo and behold, that's what happened. Amber, you cited Cloud's Thresh. What is Cloud's Thresh going to do post 6? He's going to go in on every hook because he's kind of crazy. He's going to flay. He's going to box. Whoever he hits with that gets an equalizer and a shock blast dropped on their head. And oh yeah, Loveling's going to come around and clean up because he does tons of damage. It's just a beautiful composition. yes, absolutely, if the game had gone to 50 minutes, given the Zilean, Tristana, Oriana nastiness, Starhorn could have come back. But even just looking from top-down champion select, it's like, oh my god. If
Yeah.
OMG doesn't get a huge lead off this, they are not going to win the series because they just look horrid.
Yeah.
But for me, what it came down to was that 18-minute dragon or whatever, wherever it was, like around there, second dragon of the game, where OMG went for dragon, and Royal Club was like, let's fight this. Like, let's try and steal this with the Oriana Shockwave. Like, let's use one of our AoE disengage ults that we could use to maybe save ourselves in case this goes sour to engage this fight. And then, Thresh just lands the hook. And, like, that was so poor. Like, they could have just gone top, pushed top lane, gotten maybe 2 towers top or something with four-man push top, and instead they just fight, lose, give a way bigger goal lead to OMG, and then that's just the game right there.
That's kind of Starhorn's MO, though.
I know.
They love to fight. Like
That's
No
what
dragon left
worries
behind.
me. That's what worries me about their series against White. It's like that type of stuff is literally going to just get you destroyed. It got them destroyed against OMG. So, I don't know. That was a really poor decision by their part on game 1, I think. That's what really ended the game. At that point, I was like, all right, this is done.
It seemed that Starhorn Royal Club actually had a couple of questionable dragon fights throughout all of the games. In game 1 and game 2, they both had really, really bad team fights. A dragon which almost threw them the second game and probably did throw them the first game. Do you think that despite the fact that they maybe got some when they were winning their other games, they have a problem with these kind of objectives? Being a typical Chinese aggressive team that loves team fighting.
Okay, Chinese teams, it is a little bit overdone, but they're fighting based. As a region, China is taking tremendous steps forward in terms of neutral objective control. But even it was highlighted in the cast, I'll highlight it here. Starhorn Royal Club's vision control is absolutely anemic 9 times out of 10. And how do you control neutral objectives effectively? You're just going and thinking our superior mechanics are going to carry us through the day, when in fact, if a team knows where the hell you're coming from, they can kill you before you're ready. Starhorn's main issue, and it's going to be a tremendous issue that we'll talk about against Samsung White, is they're going to screw up something in vision, and they're going to get punched in the face for it, and it's going to be tough for them to come back. That has been a Starhorn thing throughout this tournament, and even like if you go all the way back to All Stars with OMG, OMG's warding was pretty bad, and it's the evolution within that region that has to happen to consistently compete, maybe even knock off more Korean teams. That's where they need to go.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Even that pink ward on Baron, was it game 2 or was it game 3? Where they put a pink ward in Baron pit that couldn't see the green ward. I think it was OMG that put a pink ward in Baron pit that couldn't see the green ward on the other side, like the direct opposite side of the back of the pit. So they started a Baron and they thought they thought it was clear, but there was actually a ward that somebody TP'd to right there that they couldn't see from their pink ward. Was that game 3 or was that game 2? I can't remember.
3.
But it was
Or
just like
somebody
even their
Barons.
pink ward. Oh yeah, the bear. Don't even get me started about the Barons in this game. I was watching them with Camille and I was just crying. I was going, no, why? Oh my god, it was terrible. But yeah, that even their pink ward placement was lacking. Like it's like they really don't understand the vision radiuses and everything. Like I don't see how like in game 2, for example, OMG tried 2 Barons where all they had to do was ward it properly. They could have seen them coming, backed off, disengaged, but instead they just full on commit and then lose the game.
I think it's just a Chinese thing that they take the risk, which is not really calculated well enough. It's not about the Chinese aggression. We fight no matter what, because they fight around dragons, they fight around barons, and they want to get something out of it. But the risk they take is so huge, it might swing the game to their disadvantage way too much than it should have. And
That's what happened in game 2.
those decisions should not be made at all. And Korean, not even American teams, they don't do that. Because if you can lose, why take the risk? And Chinese teams don't, I don't know if they don't see the negative outcome, or they just go, sure, we're gonna flip a coin, it's gonna be whatever we pick. So I think that's the problem, because against White, you can flip a coin 10 times, And sure, you win 9 times and you're a bit ahead, but you lose one coin toss and white is gonna stomp you. It's gonna just be... You're gonna lose all the vision, you're gonna pretty much lose the game from one mistake, possibly, at that caliber. So, yeah, those games just show that both teams are not... I don't know if mature enough. Yeah, let's say mature enough to handle this kind of Korean level play, where they have to know exactly what to do at what point without taking any unnecessary risk. So, to be honest, Starcom Royal Club threw some Barons. They were better. I don't think either team really deserved the win that much. But yeah, that's definitely something to work on. They have to just repair it as soon as possible.
Game 2, if OMG had played it more methodically, they were up 2,000 gold the whole entire game, and then like 2,500 gold-ish. Then that one Baron fight, now you're down 2.5 gold, like 2.5k. Like it was like right there on the game, exactly what you're saying. They just make one decision. Let's try this Baron. Let's try this two-man Baron with Lee Sin. Like let's do that. Like. And then what happens? Oh, okay. We just get like basically what was it, 4 for 1, 3 for 1, and then the Baron comes out.
Well, to China's credit, again, comparing OMG's vision from All Stars to what it is now, it's a heck of a lot better. So it's not like they haven't already made strides; they're just not there yet. If you want to project all the way forward, and you are willing to assume that they continue to grow at a decent rate. Next season's World Championship should be a hell of a lot of fun with China going against Korea. Assuming Korea doesn't blow itself up.
I want to hop on something that you just said. When you talk about people getting better and improving, I think that OMG is something that we need to recognize in this, because they seem to have looked like the most improved team over Worlds to me. Do you think that OMG has any specific weaknesses that need to be improved that need to be changed for them to keep improving as a team, to get them to the top tier, to be a world-class team?
I think they're
needs to
already a
start
world-class
performing.
team. I'm sorry.
I think Cool is like a consistent underperformer. I think the guy's capable of a lot more than what he's been given. Like we've seen some games of him in the past, like where he's really shone. And I didn't really see it from him. As well as that, like, the jungler, is it Loveling?
Yeah, Loveling.
Yeah, him. It just, whenever I watch him, I don't know, it's really strange. It just looks awkward. Like, whenever he does something, like if you watch Insect perform the Insect, right? And then you watch Loveling do it, there's like half a second, maybe, like, out, and it just looks awkward. I don't know what it is, but the guy just seems like either as if he's playing with real nerves, or if he's just, I don't know what it is, he's just an awkward player.
I think it might be more on Insect, because Insect doesn't seem to have any hesitation left in him. He just, when he sees something, smooth. He goes for it. So yeah. That's the difference, I think.
Well, the other thing about Loveling is he has had to do some position swaps. He was Alan, the support, and then he changed back to jungle.
Yeah, he was
drug or something.
Well, yeah, as drug. But what I guess my thing with him is, and you obviously are the coach here, so you would have to answer. You'd be better answering this than any of us. Does a position swap like that? How does that negatively impact your continued growth as a player? Could that explain some of his hesitancy?
Well, it might change his mindset. Like that's the thing when you're playing, like obviously a positional role. You have a mentality when you go in. Like if you're putting Insect to the top lane, like again, like you seen, he was still that aggressive natured guy. He was still going in with the Zac ults and the slingshot into the ult, and he was engaging really hard, and he didn't hesitate ever. Like you've still got that same sort of, I don't know, play style. Like even though you're playing a different role and you're looking out for different things, like I think the more positions you play, it should improve you. If anything, I don't think it should take you back. Obviously, it will take you time to adapt to the position and the champions again. Like there's no doubt about that. We've seen that. But overall, I don't think it changes that much. It's just a thing of time.
Well, I don't really think it's fair to blame him at all. I thought he played pretty well the entire series, to be honest. Like his Lee Sin looked pretty good. Even his Kha'Zix was fine. Like I think he played okay. And I mean, Cool kind of underperformed this tournament, I guess, because of all the hype around him. But in the same way, like he played Jace the first 2 games, and then Jace gets banned. And then he starts playing TF the next 2 games, and then TF gets banned. And then, yeah, his Game 5 Orianna was bad. But, I mean, I'll get into this, I guess, in a few minutes or something. But the pick, I think what really killed OMG was their pick ban phase. Like, they really, Game 5 especially was a colossal failure. Just a colossal failure in pick bans. And, like, if you're going to, they're already a very good team, to answer Amber's question. Like, they're already world-class in a lot of ways. If they fix that pick ban phase to where they actually knew what to prioritize for themselves and what to take away from the other team, I think they would fare a lot better against other really high-level teams. I still think OMG should have won the series. I actually think they're a better team than Royal Club. They just didn't. They just made some really stupid plays and kind of gave Royal Club the series.
Talking about picks, there's one specific one that I kind of want to talk about, and that's Insect's Fiddlesticks pick. RNG, you know that I'm going to bring this to you because you're the coach here. So do you want to shed us some light on the Fiddlesticks pick?
Well, there's actually there's a guy in the EU. I think it's at Narcus. Like he's a famous Fiddlesticks only player, and like it will get banned against them like every game. You know, like Fiddlesticks is, if you can play it and you know how your team knows how to use it, it's really good. I mean, if you take a sieging comp with a Fiddlesticks, right? You think about it, you're sieging a side lane, okay? Or even mid lane. There are positions where the Fiddlesticks can be out of vision range as long as you have a good enough control that you can dive over and just completely turn the fight around. You know, the champion is legit. You just need to know how to play against it. And that's the thing, no one plays it. So you're kind of like, I don't know, what is it, like dazed or such? Like, oh, what do we do? You know?
It was interesting.
Does anyone else want to say anything about the Fiddlestick?
Well, it was really interesting, and it worked out pretty well. But I mean, that whole team, their whole comp was team fight comp. That was game 3, right? That was literally like, our only hope at beating you here is if you group up, and then we can use all of our ults together on you. And then, even though that OMG was playing with a Nidalee and a TF, they're like, sure, let's group up and walk into all your ults. Like, they didn't have the wards on the side either. When you play against the Fiddlesticks, you have to keep like wards by your Wraith camp and your Wolf camp, like those areas, so that you can see him if he's over the wall and wants to ult onto you. And that's what ended up happening. Like, they got Ori ulted, Fiddle ulted, and that's pretty much, like, they were down 10k gold, and that's just how strong a Fiddle Ori ult combo can be against a team that's not meant to team fight.
But it also definitely plays to their hands because both teams likes to dive the other one, and they don't dive with like one person or two people diving in, killing and just running away or flashing away. When they dive with 4 people, and against a Fiddlestick who can be out of your vision range for anything, because you can't ward everything, especially, well, they didn't ward properly anyway, but you can't have the full vision of the map without some special software, I suppose. But if you dive and the Fiddlestick is on the other side channeling his ultimate, it's gonna go wrong. It's gonna go really wrong, really fast. So I think Insect played really well. There was some hesitations from time to time. I've seen him just running around, not really sure if he should ult in or not. But overall, that was an amazing performance, and I just hope there will be more Fiddlesticks. It's a risky pick though, so I wouldn't be surprised not to see anyone, but I wish I have.
It was fun.
Dandy's Rengar versus Insect's Fiddlesticks, match of the week.
It was definitely match of the week. So talking a bit more about OMG's pick ban phase, Game 5 was probably most arguably worst draft phase for OMG. And it looks, okay, so we'll talk a bit about what happened there. So basically, OMG banned Lee Sin and Twitch, and Lee Sin, Insect's Lee Sin wasn't exactly looking amazing throughout the tournament, so it doesn't really make much sense that he did that. They take Janna on the first rotation with Kha'Zix instead of Lucian and Thresh, so that means Uzi gets Lucian in Game 5 and Starhorn Royal Club can take Thresh in the last rotation. OMG plays Rumble even though he's not doing really that great in Game 2, and Starhorn Royal Club banned out both of Cool's champs, Jace and TF, who we played in the last 2 games, which you guys talked about earlier. What do you think went wrong in this draft phase? RNG, we're going to start with you because you're the coach, so you need to know about draft phases.
Well, just a priority on picks. You know what I mean? It's like they see the Rise pick come through and then instantly take, what is it, Janna and Kha'Zix. Like, I don't know, like, you can tell that that Rise is going top. So, or whatever, top or mid. So you initially would take a top or a mid. I think you would take the top generally because you want to save, as Purple said, your mid for last pick, like to counter it and such. But it depends what they've been practicing on. And I just think the priorities and the picks weren't there. I mean, we've seen Janna being really good this tournament, right? But to pick a Janna blind into just a Rise, which is actually like quite a short range caster anyway, I don't see the point in prioritizing that.
Well, they had first pick Rise. Like, they did get to take the Rise first pick. So what ended up happening is that Starhorn basically banned out Jace, TF, and Rise by first picking it, plus the Alistar, because none of the Chinese teams have really been playing that. But what really perplexed me is why would you ban Twitch when you've already beaten it in the series? You showed that it wasn't a big deal. Then you first picked Janna. If you really wanted to play the Janna and you didn't want to play Thresh, which I don't understand that decision either, because Thresh was highly impactful in the series in both support hands, and neither of them played as well on the other supports that they played. So instead of taking the Thresh, and then Lucian was also another highly contested pick. He was almost always picked. He was picked every single game, and he did really well in every single game. So I don't understand why not take those two champions, pick your bot lane right away. It's a very strong bot lane. Taking a Thresh Lucian isn't gonna, make you lose the game or anything. It just didn't make any sense to me at all.
I think looking at the totality of the ban phase, it was a complete OMG failure. I agree with both of you. The first pick Rise was a pretty fair assumption that it was going to be Cola's because Cola played it in the group stage a whole lot. Honestly, I probably would have wanted to see the Janna be something different. Maybe pull that Rumble up, but I like the Kha'Zix pick because that effectively pushed Insec onto something that you don't see very much, and that came through in the Pantheon. I'm absolutely sure that second rotation Maokai blew up OMG's plan. Because it was like, wait, what? And it devolved from there. That Janna, I don't like. I think I don't think OMG took into consideration that Zero works really well on that champion because not only can he set Uzi up to get early kills, but he can save Uzi's ass when Uzi does something insane. Dark Passage is the single greatest thing for that. When that entered the game, Uzi should have been dancing for months because throughout, whenever watch LPL stuff, it's like, oh, Zero has Thresh. Uzi's going to go nuts this game. It was pretty common. And that, I feel like just looking at this game, looking at tendencies for Starhorn, looking at OMG's tendencies, OMG so badly dropped the ball with the Janna pick that it ruined everything else, and it just got worse and worse as it went.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. The Kha'Zix pick was fine.
Yeah, the Kha'Zix probably was the best thing they picked from the entire composition. The rest was just kind of out of place.
You say that right, but what is Pantheon good at?
Yeah, Pantheon was...
Ganking bot lane. He's good at ganking bot lane, so it's like Uzi's the main thing. So,
no, Pantheon is actually pretty good when you have a hard CC or a root on any of those lanes, on the solo lanes or the other, because it guarantees you a flash at least. And Insec always plays those early junglers that needs to have a good start, because if it doesn't start well, it can go really quickly south. As it went with Jarvan at the first game, it didn't really work, like 1-8 or 2-8, something pretty bad. So he needed the CC, and that's what I think won the match, the amount of CC, because OMG didn't really have any kind of initiation, because how do you initiate, really? You go Kha'Zix in, or it's gonna get blown up by anyone. You go Equalizer, they just disengage, and you don't have anything. You don't have damage anymore. So I don't think Pantheon was a bad pick. I think there was a good strategy to put Insec on something he may not be too comfortable on, but I think Pantheon worked really well. And I think it was straight down his alley. Just go in, don't care, and just hope for the best that your team is supporting you. That's how Insec plays, and that's why it worked.
Well, like, OMG missed a lot of ults too, though, right? Like, Orianna whiffed so many ults in that game, and coolest Orianna, especially compared to his TF the previous two games, was just so bad. And then The Rumble ults, again, were lackluster. I mean, the only way OMG could, like you just touched on, the only way OMG could fight was to force them into chokeholds and then land the ultimates and then take the objectives, and they just could not do that.
I want to jump in on what you just said there about OMG playing pretty badly. It's pretty obvious that OMG made a lot of mistakes, and this could have gone either way, unlike the first game in the semi-finals. Do you think that OMG is still a better team than Starhorn Royal Club? Because I've seen quite a few people think that Starhorn Royal Club only won because of the mistakes that OMG made, not because they're a better team. What do you guys think?
It's the hype after the quarterfinal. The quarterfinal OMG is definitely the better team. The OMG that showed up into the semifinal, they lost, so they are not. That's just simple as this. If you throw a game, if you throw so many Barons, Dragons, you play horribly, make worst decisions possible, you're not the better team. And sure, maybe Royal Club wasn't the best, but was good enough.
Like, I think OMG is the better team 9 times or 8 times out of 10. But on that given week, you can't say the team that lost was better that day. Like, you can't do it. Because the thing is OMG had control of the majority of the series. I will say that. If it's like, if you want to take like a real sports stat or whatever, if you want to go like time on attack or time of possession or something, OMG would probably have come out ahead on that, but they made a few massive errors that blew it up. Like, it doesn't matter if you're on the opponent's end all game if you throw an interception or 2 interceptions, right? Like, it doesn't matter. So it's one of those things. It's like, if you can't capitalize when you're ahead and you can't close the game out and then you make one really bad decision or one really risky play that costs you the game, then I don't know. Like, yeah, you were better for 80% of the game, but you lost.
I want to throw one more question out. But, oh, wait, no, Thomas.
No, I just wanted to say Starhorn Royal Club still had to be good enough to take advantage of the mistakes. Yep. So I think I kind of feel like that's fans of OMG trying to make themselves feel better, which is a pretty common fan base thing in all kinds of sports.
Well, they said it's that we beat the Koreans, so we are the top team. Yeah. That's the only thing.
Oh, God. Well, Najin White Shield was horrific, so I don't even want to go there. But I just, it's sure, could OMG probably win 8 out of 10? I'd agree with Dave. But OMG has not been consistent. They have not been a consistent team. They have not been a consistent team for months. Free cloud, blah, blah, blah. Great. But that's part of their inconsistency. They can't stabilize a lineup long enough to get the chemistry required to play at a high level, 99% of the time. So I don't buy that. That's again, it's like a fan base trying to make themselves feel better. Starhorn was still good enough to take advantage of the mistakes.
They just need to change one player after each game. When they changed Cloud, they played amazingly. So they have to change one player before each big series, and they're gonna stomp everyone.
I like that plan.
I want to focus on 2 players specifically from this series who I think were probably the most recognized. First of all, Gogoing, which has been shown to be one of the best top laners in the world. He is amazing. And also Uzi from Starhorn Royal Club. What is it, do you guys think, that set these guys apart from the rest of, a lot of the rest of the competition?
Well, in Uzi's case, he's got a very good system, his team plays into his style. With Zero, Camilla said this last week, Zero is the best safety blanket that Uzi's ever had. So Uzi can do stuff where if you see it, you're like, wait, why did you just do that? Oh, Zero just saved your ass. It's okay. That's happened multiple times, even in this tournament. Now, in terms of Gogoing is just a fabulous top laner, and particularly when you consider he's actually one of the main shot callers for OMG. The guy just is excellent. And seeing his 5-0-15 Rise game over 70 minutes against Fnatic, that's just gross. That's just like the tip of the iceberg in terms of excellence. So I think it's just him. He's up there with Looper. He's a guy that has consistently delivered, but because compared to Looper, he's the shot caller, it's like, okay, this guy gets the publicity because he's not only excellent at the game, he's a leader for his team. I think that's with Gogoing.
I'm really sad we don't get to see that matchup. I really wanted to see Gogoing versus Looper.
Kidding, buddy. I was hoping for that so bad, but them's the breaks.
Well,
we do get Uzi Imp. That's going to be fun too, because I don't think that there's any two players that are more egotistical in their role than those two guys. I mean, maybe you could throw Double Lift in there too, but I don't know. Like, that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun to. That's going to be fun to watch. That's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, it may come to who's gonna throw harder, because Uzi was amazing, but there were some situations where even Zero couldn't save him. He just went way too far than he should have. And that's, sure, you can rely on your support, but 1 out of 5 times it may backfire. You lose your main damage potential or damage dealer, and what do you do then? You just lose a team fight and lose objectives and lose the control of the map. So I don't know. This style it's fun to watch, but it's a risky thing.
Okay, I'm just going to point out there, I think that John has actually gone to the bathroom real fast and he'll be back with us very soon. He hasn't just disappeared. We don't have phantom guests coming on the show or anything.
We're working on that
but
for
that's,
next week.
Yeah, that's our Christmas special episode.
Quite early.
Anyway, we're going to move on from the semi-finals and we're going to talk a little bit about what we predict is going to happen in the finals. Okay, so the finals are going to be Samsung White versus Starhorn Royal Club, and Samsung White have only lost 1 game in the whole tournament so far. Okay, we're going to go with predictions and we're going to ask why, and we're going to start with Thomas. Thomas, who is going to win, what's the score going to be, and why are they going to do it?
Okay, Samsung White's going to win.
Really?
Really, going out on a limb here.
Wow.
I think Samsung White's going to win 3-1. And I'm going to use the same metaphors to describe Starhorn Royal Club that I used last week because I still feel like it's apropos. They're a sledgehammer. They're going to swing their sledgehammer and they can hit people. And when they hit people, they will beat people. But if they miss, they're hosed. I think they'll hit Samsung White hard enough to win 1 game. Unfortunately, with the other 3 games, big problem. Because Samsung White is what Starhorn Royal Club wants to be when they grow up. It's Starhorn Royal Club. Samsung White is Starhorn Royal Club plus an understanding of vision and how to pressure the map. That is how this breaks down to me.
And more talent.
Well, there's that, fair enough. But it's just it's so tough for me to believe that Looper's going to curl up into a ball and not do anything, and Pawn's going to fall off the face of the earth, and that's really what it's going to take.
Exactly.
It's going to take Starhorn winning their solo lanes, which nobody has done against White in this tournament with anything resembling consistency, if at all. And sure, Uzi might manage to fight Imp to a standstill, but what's it matter when Pawn roams down with Jace and blows Uzi's face off around a turret? Doesn't matter. So I think it'll be exciting, it'll be back and forth, it'll be bloody, but the deck is really stacked in Samsung White's favor for me.
Yeah, even if Uzi is equal to Imp, on the other partner of the duo lane will work 3 times as much on the White side. So, Zero will just stick to Uzi and like, come on, just don't wait. And Mata will just roam around, ward everything in the meantime, come back, and they will be fine. So I don't even think the bottom lane is equal. I don't think any lane. I think the closest would be the middle lane. I don't think the top lane, because the top lane is kind of a weird situation to compare because it all depends on teleports, it all depends on roams and stuff like that. So if you get a lane swap, it's totally different. And obviously now you have more champions in the top lane than just Mundo, Maokai, and Alistar, just random tanks that do the same thing. You have different champions that do different stuff. So it's kind of hard to compare. But Cool has a chance, and I think they will get 1 game at least, because I truly believe that White is gonna try styling on them. I think after semi-final, there were few, we won. Pawn was like, oh my god, I even got the jacket from Dade. So I'm pretty sure they're convinced they just won right now. They don't need to prepare, so they will try some weird stuff. They will try styling. I hope it backfires, because it's gonna be more fun if it backfires. But yeah, I think they're gonna take it not cleanly. Definitely not cleanly.
Okay, I know that John had some slightly different opinions on how the finals are going to turn out. Do you want to explain to us what you think's going to happen?
Oh no, it's not that I think. Definitely, like if you look at it from a purely analytical point of view, like White will 3-0 or 3-1 this, but I think this plays perfectly into Royal Club's favour because, as you say, White are going to be overconfident. Now, if they can pull out something like I said earlier, like the Nocturne, I think that is a brilliant pick for that team because it lets Insect decide when it goes in, and if they take an Oriana, it's split it up because obviously was it Korn or is that the mid laner's name? Yeah.
Yes, Korn's the middle
Korn.
laner for Starhorn.
Yeah. He's not like a carry mid laner, so putting him on an Oriana where he just needs to ball, Insect and then land it out, then it's pretty decent, man. And it suits their style as such. I think it's a really good pick against White, but no one seems to do it. No one seems to go for that, especially when they're playing these, poke siege comps.
So what do you think that the overall score is going to be at the end?
It's got to be. I'll go with 3-0 because I just think
White's
White's
Samsung
got
White.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask Dave what he thought about the finals, but he doesn't want to talk to us at the moment.
He dropped out. We're trying to get the overlay fixed, guys.
We'll ask him. We'll ask him why things when he comes back. I'm sure he'll oblige. But for now, we'll move on to the next topic, which is roster changes, which is the most exciting thing to talk about. I'm going to start with amazing, not so amazing. I'm sorry. Okay, so he posted a lot of stuff lately that's been pretty questionable. I actually have a quote that I need to say from Amazon's statement on leaving TSM, and that is, "Will this mean I'll retire? Hell no. Apparently everyone in EU suddenly became a jungle god, so I'll have fun showing that isn't the case, just like last spring split." Okay, now I don't have a clue where Amazon gets this idea that there is some Western jungle god, but he hasn't exactly shown it in his play lately. What do you guys think about Amazon leaving TSM? Do you think that it's going to benefit TSM, or do you think that there's not really enough possible good North American junglers to replace him with?
Well,
Has it been clarified, like the region thing? Has it been clarified that TSM cannot, under any circumstances, bring someone in?
It hasn't.
Well, there were some stuff going on, like all the players that played in the summer and the spring split are the NA residents, so they don't apply the foreign rule. But that's just what I heard. What?
So they can bring 2 foreign players in still? They still have 2 foreign
That's what I've
players?
heard, but I don't think Riot actually clarified it, and people are still on the verge. They don't really understand the rule as well. I've seen different players from the LCS talking different things about it as well, so actually understanding it differently. So I'm not quite sure, but probably they can bring someone else from outside NA.
Until Riot makes an official statement on that, I'm reluctant to say one way or the other. I will say, given the jungle talent in North America, I believe that was one of the reasons that Dexter and Amazing came over anyway, is that there was a perception that jungle talent in North America wasn't very good. Which, fine, okay. So I would think it would be a step back for TSM. But at the same time, it's tough for me to not read what Amazing says and just wonder where his head is and how that affected the team. Mm-hmm. I read his stuff, and let's call a spade here. That Blocko text that critted everyone's face off that read it basically came off like, I am a victim. He played the victim card. And I'm sorry, you are a 21, 22, whatever young man. You are getting paid to play a video game. Yes, you're going to have adversity, but are you really living a tough life? I would have to get a lot more into it to believe that, to really buy into that. So is he such a head case that it might make TSM better? Sure, if you're a big on the team chemistry thing, but there's just not a lot of North American talent. Now, worldwide, there's stuff there. Now, does it mean that does Lesbo use a connection to pull someone in from Korea with the potential uncertainty surrounding that entire region? Maybe. I don't know. That would probably be where TSM would want to go. But there's so many factors up in the air that you can't really say is TSM better for it. In order to say that, you have to assume that Amazing is just a head case, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was kind of silly to read, especially the comment about showing that that's not the case, that we have the junglers in Europe. Come on. He wasn't that great in America. I'm not gonna say he was bad necessarily, because people criticized him more than he deserved it, I think. But it's also the swing between the hypey and the slump thing. Because if you are hyped and then you just play an average game, people will straight on just say you're horrible. So I'm not gonna say he's bad, and I think he could be a TSM's role player like Oddone was in the past, but better mechanically, obviously. And he would be fine in TSM. I think that wasn't necessarily a needed change even, but if they need someone else, maybe I don't know enough NA solo queue. I watch challengers in NA, but I don't see many great junglers. I've seen some decent, but if they're playing against other decent NA challenger junglers, it's kind of hard to evaluate how good they actually are. So it's kind of odd. Sure, there's Kakao, but he declared he's gotta go to China, so we can only hope. But that would be nice.
It's been said that Azing is trying out for TSM. Do you think that he would be fit into the team? Because I've heard stuff about him, and I've heard that he's not a very, like, mindset-wise, he's not in a very good place. Like, I've heard that he used to go play solo queue and when he was meant to be playing scrims with his team and stuff like that. Do you think that he might be a good fit for TSM, or do you think that he's below the skill cap that they need to fit in with the rest of their team, and his attitude problem will cause more problems on top of that?
Do you know what? The huge pile of money Reggie's going to hand to him and Reggie's strict rules may change his attitude or just shift it slightly. So I think he may be fine. I don't know. I haven't seen him enough to say if it's good on an LCS level or on the top level. TSM is right now struggling to be the best NA team, which they want. So let's say let's even say they are. So now they need to step up and go against Chinese and the Koreans. So if they pick Azingi, I'm not sure if it's gonna be an improvement. It may be the same level as Amazing, but why would you change Amazing then?
Hey.
Just personal problems? Weird.
Well,
I don't see anyone right now.
I think I want to give a quick shout out, not to cut you off, but a guy that I work with over at Esportspedia, Pinata, is in chat, and he said, and something that should underpin this entire discussion, the jungle is going to go through some pretty radical changes with Season 5. So it's almost tough to say if, there's not some jungler in NA that's going to take to the changes, like, just jump in and really get good and surprise. But it's just, it's if there was one spot in my mind, and this goes for both CLG and Team Solo Mid, this is not a spot you want to be changing right now, because there's going to be a huge learning curve with the jungle changes coming in, or the proposed jungle changes, excuse me. So I certainly feel like if there was one thing that could derail TSM a little bit, it might be this, just because while they're trying out junglers, the teams that have junglers will be adapting and learning and preparing. That's something to think about.
On the other hand, you can breed. When you look at the top junglers around the world, you have, in the past, the best junglers were, let's say, Diamond, let's say, Benji. They were all players that were taught how to play around the mid lane. They were specific, they had a specific role how to play, and that was all they did. I don't think Diamond, for example, is this amazing player that can do everything, and it showed when Alex left. He couldn't really find his place right at the beginning of the Niku era, or whatever you call it. So I think maybe they should just take someone fresh and just totally capable of learning and totally listening to anything they say, and just go, okay, we have Bjergsen, you do whatever he says. You are there, you don't have a voice in this team. Just be the help the team needs. Maybe that's the way to go.
Possible. John, do you have any thoughts on on Amazing leaving TSM?
I think he'll come back to EU and it could slot into a team no bother. Maybe even go back to the Wolves. Who is it that's juggling for them? Airwax or something at the moment?
Airwax.
So, you know, he could probably walk back into that team if he's still got connections there. I don't know how the relationships are, but I think he could get into an LCS team no bother. Whether or not it's going to be a team that will attend Worlds again is a different matter. But I mean, what is it? Super Hot Crew are still looking for a jungler as well. There's lots of teams to look to get into.
Yeah,
you know?
of course.
Yeah. On the Amazing thing, I mean, is he really complaining about the fact that he just went to like one of the most lucrative organizations in esports because of fan pressure on his performance, and then he goes and says that it's like unfair criticism of his, like, I'm sorry, dude, but come on, you can't be serious. Like,
You can't
did
play
not-
bad and then expect to be criticized.
Yeah, like you got banned out easily all the time. And he's like, oh, well, I dominated the series against Dignitas. I controlled those games, I think. What, you mean the series where your team got 0 Barons? That series? That one? The one where you guys got wrecked and barely made it through? Like, I'm sorry, dude, but no. I don't know. Like, as much as he seemed like a nice guy, I had no problem with him. But when he came out and said all that, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of glad you're gone. Like, it seems to me like a massive cop-out. Like, he didn't like dealing with the pressure. And it's like, okay, well... if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like if you can't deal with getting criticized when you're on the number one, like why go to the number one team then? Why bother? Mm-hmm. You're gonna get criticized unless you do anything but win. That's just obvious. Now people take it too far sometimes, but when they're criticizing his play objectively, which is mostly all, I never really heard anybody attack Amazing personally. I just heard them say that he was easily, he was just out and he.
People say he has a small champion. Well, it's true. He made mistakes in a game. It's true. I don't know how we can complain about things that I think completely just messed up with.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand it either. It's almost like sometimes I'm envious of like the cognitive dissonance some people can possess, and I'm wondering if this is like one of those situations, you know?
Yeah.
Now you know how it felt from forgiving the streaming everyone.
Do what?
We're gonna move on to Dexter. That's why I'm pointing at you. I'm pointing at you because I said we're going to move on to Dexter. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little about CLG instead of TSM. My personal preferred North American team. Okay, so Dexter's okay. I mean, he can play Lee Sin in North America, so that's a plus. That's something that Americans don't have. Why do you think it is that Dexter actually left CLG, like the actual reason? And do you think that CLG could benefit from getting a different player in? Or do you think CLG needs like a complete roster change to make things better?
I think it's...
Go, Thomas.
Okay, sorry. John, I'm just trying to give you a chance to talk. No, anyway, before the show... Okay, there we go. Before the show, we said that the three column pillars of CLG, even though that's kind of a bad phrase, were the Rush Hour bot lane and Dexter, and didn't feel like any of those three were where to go to change things. I will say their situation is a little bit different because they can bring in a foreigner because Dexter's leaving and they still have Seraph. The other three are NA based. So I think their situation's probably a little better because there's no weirdness. There's no, like in TSM's case, they're going to have to wait for Riot to clarify their rules. I think that's pretty well understood. CLG doesn't have that problem. So they can look at people all over the world. Even though Monte Cristo is not their coach anymore, he's still a Korean resource for the team, I'm sure. So they can try and find something to get it going. I think, again, going back to the changes that are proposed in the jungle, you're going to have time to adapt your entire team around that. So the sooner you can find a jungler and get him, boots on the ground, scrimming with the team, that's a good thing. And CLG obviously has more options than TSM. Now, I thought Dexter was better than Amazing. I still think Dexter was better than Amazing. So it will be tougher for CLG to find someone at that talent level. But their talent pool, their talent base that they can get to immediately is wider than TSM. So I think they're in a better position overall.
If I were CLG, I'd be waiting for the Korea thing to clear up a bit so they can find out if they can get one of those guys. Because that's not really, it's still rumors, right? But if one of those teams, if they have to give up half their teams, that would be really good. Like they could get a Cacao type guy. Maybe not Cacao himself, but Spirit could be a free agent. That's possible.
Yeah, with the
How
one
long
team
are the contracts
changes
over
coming.
there as well? The
Pardon?
current contracts. You know how in LCS we have like on the All Esports we have the contract length like until certain players expires. Like, is there an equivalent for the Korean leagues? Like where you can see where these guys are out of contract.
I don't think it's visible anywhere.
I don't know if
seen
it's
one.
visible on all esports. I've always been given the impression that it's been a year-by-year contract. Like, give you an example, Mata asked that Samsung not renew his contract if they didn't go to Worlds, but I can't set in stone what the exact contract structure of Korea is.
Okay. Because that could quite obviously a factor. If you could see who was a free agent, then you could make better predictions as to who was going well.
Mhm.
Well, people keep on assuming that, let's say the rumor is true, you can only have one team in Korea, right? So Samsung has to get rid of one team. KT, CJ, they all have to get rid of one team. What would make you believe that those teams will just randomly split up and not just be picked up by other organizations, maybe not KESPA organizations, but other ones, and just stay the same? Especially teams on the caliber of Blue, for example. What would you assume they're all gonna just split up? Like, okay, we did well. We don't have Samsung, so let's just go to America.
Are there
So
big orgs willing to sign them though? That's the thing, right? Because Samsung can give them a lot of money. What organization could step in and replicate that?
in Korea, there are a couple. All the Startail, for example, maybe. And maybe there will be other sponsors, even just not even organizations, but individual sponsors willing to give out money to the teams to represent their brand. So I'm not sure how much the Korea thing will impact the NA scene and the EU scene and the Chinese scene. Obviously, some players will want to move because you may get more money if you move to NA, because NA is like this big bank. You just go in and you expect to get this big bag of money with $1, like big dollar sign on it, and that's your fee just to come to America. So yeah, but I don't think the teams will split that easily. At least not all of the teams. Maybe there will be some, but the best teams, I don't expect them to split that easily. And sure, you can get some lower tier Korean jungler and hope, okay, this is a Korean, so lower tier Korean is still top level anything else. You can think like that, but is it really true? I don't know.
No, that's not. I don't really believe that. Look at Seraph. That was the case.
It's hard to say.
Helios was probably playing the best out of almost anybody by the end of the season for Evil Geniuses. So there is precedent for a Korean jungler coming in and making his team a lot better.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah, I
Helios
agree
in
with
EG, playing best in EG.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. So it's pretty hard to discuss what's going to happen, considering all of the changes that we're going to see with the actual game, never mind just rosters. So we're going to move on to the part of the show where we answer questions from you guys, our viewers. Okay, let's see what we've got. So the first question is from Emily Rand, and that is, with the recent abdication of Amazen, there was a backlash against the community regarding the criticism of his performance. With players so close to the main avenues of League of Legends commentary, like Twitter and Reddit, how can teams foster a better psychological environment for players? Who wants to take this one?
I'll jump into this because I spoke with Robert Yip, a sports psychologist for Team Liquid, and I also wrote not long ago an interview about how we kind of have to be able to separate people from their work and not go too deep into personal attacks and stuff like that. So first, I think every team should really be getting a sports psychologist, because when you think about it, we're dealing with kids, right? Like, these guys are not old and they're not mature. And think about how bad your day would be if you had 5 kids at school or 5 people out from work tell you that they didn't like you. Now amplify that times like 5,000, like 5,000 messages you get in a day that say you suck, blah, blah, blah. That could be hard to deal with. So I think a sports psychologist, for most of the teams that can afford it, would be a really good investment for their players' like mental health and stability. But on the other hand, like I was criticized Amazing for a little bit earlier, when I say, Amazing, your champion pool is very limited and you get banned out easily, and that leads to problems for TSM. That is not a personal attack on you, and if you're going to go cry in the corner over that, you shouldn't be playing professional league or professional anything. You should just do something where you're going to be nameless and faceless, because when you're out in the public eye, you're going to be criticized. So we have to differentiate that. But yeah, I think a sports psychologist would be really, really helpful for most players. And that would be at least a good starting point to teach them what sort of things to maybe look for, take with a grain of salt, what sort of things to just immediately ignore as troll hate, and to help them work through some of this stuff in general.
Yeah, Curse actually already announced that they will be hiring, or actually they already hired a full-time professional sports psychologist. So some teams already invest in this area. So although Liquid said something along the lines of, if the team doesn't perform, we're gonna blame it on the staff, which is kind of a weird thing to write, and may not even be smart. The teams needs some help. The stuff is what makes the Koreans better. I don't think individually the players can grow to be some monsters, but if they have all the help required, they don't need to think about the picks and bans. They don't need to deal with any stress. They can just focus on one thing, on improving. And if they can focus on this one thing instead of making vlogs like some other supports from NA all the time, which I'm not gonna name, but you know who it is. They can actually be better. That's the only way to go. How else are you gonna chase other regions if not just investing and doing the same things? Is there any like other external things, like you just sign a pact with the devil and you're better? What's the other option? You have to do the same thing the Koreans did in the past that just boosted them way beyond everyone else. So yeah, that's needed.
Because Emily brought up Amazing in this, I just want to point out one thing. If we look at back at when Amazing was on Copenhagen Wolves, like fair enough, they were one of the lower teams, and we can't blame that all on Amazing. That was not his fault. Amazing was playing amazing when he was on Copenhagen Wolves. He was clearly one of the star players. He looked like one of the best junglers in Europe. Copenhagen Wolves had a sports psychologist, and they were the only European team to have this at the time. And because people are talking about Amazing specifically into this, do you think that maybe the sports side, I know this is like moving on a little bit from Emily's question, but do you think that Amazing maybe benefit from the sports psychologist while he was playing with Copenhagen Wolves? Because he was playing arguably a lot better during that time.
Well,
there's a lot less pressure on him, to be fair.
That's a really good point.
There was a lot less pressure on him then, but the thing about sports psychologist, and I want to kind of throw sports psychologist into a larger category and call it mentors for a lot of these players. And you can see it even like social media for mainstream athletes is weird. Like media doesn't know how to handle Twitter yet. They're still figuring it out, and the pool is a lot bigger. So what you would hope to see in cases like an Amazing, or assuming Dexter when he's gotten into a couple of ridiculous brouhahas with the community, you want to see folks like older people that have been around a little bit get into a position, whether it be management or sports psych or whatever within the organization, where the player feels like they can go talk to them if there's a problem. Like if you're getting graphic, this is what I want to do to your mother type hate, that's going to mess anybody up. Let's just assume that that's going to mess practically anybody up. Yep. So you need to have someone there that it's not you, obviously. It's outside of that, look, that's just messed up. That person's terrible. You need to not take that to heart. And if it gets to the point where you can't handle it, we'll step in and get it to stop, because the community is very, very bad at understanding the line between criticism, flaming, and outright harassment. And that what I just described is not, criticism. That's harassment, and that is, at the end of the day, a criminal act. So you need to have a structure there that if this doesn't stop, someone can stop it for you, and that's where I think we've said this on previous shows, or I know I've said it in conversations throughout my talks with Paravine. That's where it needs to go next. You need to get to that little. You've got the coaching infrastructure there. It's coming. It's building. It's great. Next, you need to kind of have this other weird infrastructure that's around to help mentally support the players. Because if a team like TSM loses, they take an inordinate amount of hate from everybody. From the community. That's a more fair term. That's where I think it needs to go next. That's where the big growth needs to happen over the next couple of years.
Of course, it's not even just about like the hate and stuff they get. I mean, sitting at a computer and practicing and playing games for like so much a day, it has a strain on you mentally, of course, as well. I've heard this from a few LCS players that the lifestyle of being an LCS player can be quite stressful in those terms. Yep. Okay, so moving on to the next question. This one is from Chris, and he says, which player in the upcoming finals has the most to gain for their esports legacy, and who has the most to lose?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. I'm going to go with most to lose. I think it has to be Imp. Imp or Dandy. Just because Samsung White is heavily favored, and who are the real faces? Like, when I bring up Samsung White, who comes up? The picture that flashes in most people's minds is either Dandy talking noise before or during the Samsung Blue Cloud9 series, and that's kind of a microcosm of him, or the Imp statement where he's like, yeah, I made him cry. Those are the two things that people think of. And, as a group, as a community, people love to build people up to hero status, but they love even more to just trash them when they make a mistake. And that could be the most to gain lose there. Now, on the other side, I'm honestly going to say the other side, jungler and AD carry. Uzi probably has the most to gain. Obviously, he's had great success on the world stage, making the finals last year. But this year, to take down the mighty Samsung White, he goes into the stratosphere. And then going to INSEC. INSEC, quintessential Korean. He left Korea to get to China. I personally think because he wanted to get to Worlds and the KT Bullets were going nowhere fast at the time.
Yeah.
But he made it to Worlds, and not only did he have success in China, he knocked off the best team in Korea that just knocked off the other best team in Korea. So I think that's what you have to look at for those two personally.
Does anyone else have any different ideas?
I think that going along the similar lines, I think Mata might be the one that has the most to lose, because when you're talking about supports, he's there. He's just Mata, and then there's like a gap. I don't know how big, but quite a big gap, and everyone else. And Zero is just everyone else. So if Mata performs badly, even if, let's say, White 3-0s them, complete domination, but they lose the lanes, like in 2 out of 3 games, let's say, and Zero is the playmaker, and Mata gets caught on 2 or 3 times, people will just catch Mata and try to wreck him through the... He's not the best support, he's just an average support, the team carried him and all those stuff. So I think just the comparison between the players, that the Mata has the higher status, the way higher status than Zero has, this might be the make or break. He has the most to lose. To gain, not really, he's already the best, so what's there to gain? To gain anyone from OMG as a team, if they win, that's the most to gain, because they are the world champions. I don't think individually they can outperform them, or Cool is already considered to be a top-level mid laner, which I agree with. Going as well, but in the top lane, obviously. So I think if those two win the lane, then it's fine. It's like, whatever. They are that good. But if Mata loses, that's going to just be the end of the legacy of Mata being the best support. So that's really worrying. I would worry about it if I were Mata.
John,
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that we should get your opinion on this.
I agree with Thomas. I don't so much agree with you, Camille, because I think, as you said, Matt is so high up, he's already got his legacy. Nothing can take that away. Even if they get
He's
3
already
wood
known
tomorrow,
as the fake supports.
yeah, like even if they get 3 wood in the final, it's not going to change Mata's status. Yeah, he might get some hate, and it might be like, oh, Mata totally choked, but he's already ascended where you need to go to, like be in the history books as such. I think Imp is the main one, because there's always been a sort of, is it Imp or Uzi, or is it Imp or Deft, or is it Imp or whoever? There's always been competition for him, like who's the best AD in the world. And like this is his time to say, no, I'm the best, you know what I mean, and totally shit on his nearest competition, that is Uzi, So it's totally on him, I think, in terms of what to lose. And in terms of things to gain, yeah, as Thomas says again, it's like Uzi. This guy can be the man who carried a team to the finals and then lost, obviously, at SKT. And then it could be the guy that carried them again with 4 new players and then won it against the totally dominant White. So I think it's those two.
Okay, so we're going to finish off on one more question. And we've had a few questions kind of around the same topic about the junglers and the roster changes. So I'm going to kind of just merge them into one for one discussion. So these questions are from Runwalker Sidloft01, and Pinata Question. And it's basically about the 3/5 rule and the future implications that it's going to come with. It's known that TSM actually have the ability to steal Helios or take Dexter while he's still in America onto their team. What do you guys think could happen with this? And also, what do you think are the implications of having this rule in the first place?
I really don't like the region locking. Personally, I think that it's just the best players should get a spot at wherever they are. You know what? Like, I'm just a fan of the highest level of competition. So if somebody's not quite good enough for Korea, but they're better than somebody here, then bring them over here. Because ultimately, you'll throw those players into our solo queue. You'll throw those players against our other competitive players, and you'll make the whole scene better and stronger because you're going to elevate the level of competition that people have to practice against. About TSM taking Dexter, that would be interesting, actually. I'm curious as to if that happens. Helios, I don't know if he'll leave EG. I'm not even sure if that would necessarily be a great fit stylistically, but Dexter, I think, could be very interesting for TSM. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the region locking at all.
Dave, do you imagine any CLG player joining TSM?
Dexter doesn't care. Come on.
I know Dexter doesn't care, but
Dexter
what
didn't
about
buy
the
into
fan
any of that
base?
stuff.
Like,
So what?
CLG may never join TSM.
If you're making decisions, if you're making decisions for the future of your organization based off what fans are going to say,
well,
you're
I understand the rumors are rumors, but you don't care about what fan base say in most cases. I'm not sure if Dexter wants to go to TSM. Obviously, I can't.
I have no idea.
Obviously, I can't believe in everything I see in Chasing the Cup and all those random things that go on. That he has problem with his personality, just arguing with the team or whatever. Because it's just exaggerated to a ridiculous proportion. And I would love to see Dexter in the name, maybe because he's a great jungler. Not sure if TSM would work. I don't think it's gonna happen though. I mean, he did. I don't think he stated anything about his future career, but I just don't see it. About Helios, I think EG keeps their players pretty tight. I would expect it from EG as an organization not to just give out players freely. Or maybe they can be bought out. I don't know. But yeah, the regional locking is definitely. But about the regional locking, you said you wanted the highest level of competition, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why you want the best players, even if they're all Korean, just go to NA, EU, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want a situation that happened in StarCraft, though, when there was Korea and foreigners. The foreigners were non-Koreans. I don't want to be that foreigner. And
yeah,
ours
but
seems
the
to be.
difference between StarCraft and League of Legends is StarCraft was around in Korea for so many years.
I understand it's quite of a simplification, but it still is. If you look at the top teams, there might be a point where there are so many Koreans in the world that you may as well call the non-Koreans foreigners, because there will be like less than 50% even maybe. So I'm not sure if that's a good idea. Definitely not for the viewers. If they want to cheer for the local teams, let's call it.
No, go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I want to hear John's ideas on the implications of the region lockup.
Okay, so here's the thing, like, what you'll see is if you're familiar with soccer football, you have a rule where I think it's 16 players out of 25 need to be from the EU and get registered to the FA or like the government body, okay? I think what they should do with this is include subs. So like 3 out of, say, 4 out of 7 players to be on this roster, but they can be subs, you know? Like, I think that opens up more opportunities. It means that you still get these players, you know, playing in teams with these international players, mostly Korean, most likely. And it still keeps a sort of, you know, breeding local talent as such from that region.
Yeah.
For me, on the 3/5 thing, I think for the long-term health of the game, it's probably a good thing because it does force the breeding thing. I could totally see what you're saying, John, as to a little bit of an expansion there. And honestly, if you look at the numbers, it's not going to be Korea taking everyone over. It's actually going to be China. League of Legends is like orders of magnitude larger in China than anywhere else. What was the statistic? DouYuTV had 1.6 million viewers. Now, obviously, there are more people in China. I mean, we can go population, but that just underscores it. There are so many Chinese players that even if it's only 1 out of a million are truly, you know, cool, faker, .A, whatever level, you're going to get more of them. At that point, it's just simple numbers. So I can see it, like, as the Chinese scene continues to emerge and grow, that could be the main region lock. I really want to see. I think it's a little bit. I think the fact that they're now coming up with it while teams have already gotten folks, I think it puts those teams at a real big disadvantage. I mean, what did we spend 15 minutes on? Well, can TSM go out and get an international jungler? Well, we don't know. The rules are not really clear. I can only imagine trying to manage a team under that kind of pressure, because what are you going to do? Are you going to kick? Were you going to kick Amazing, or are you going to kick Bjergsen to get a jungler? That's kind of it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, almost, given the dearth of talent in jungle talent in North America. So I think you're going to see some cases, I think particularly TSM's a great one, where the rule is going to bite them in the behind. But I also see overall for the long-term health of the game, it's going to be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd agree
Okay,
with
well,
that.
that's all of the questions for tonight, guys. Thanks a lot for tuning into our show. Would you like to do any shout-outs to any of the panelists before we finish?
Well, I'll shout out
to the guy.
Yep, go ahead.
Shout out to the guy who made all the funny nicknames for us. For example, I'm the Fat Elements, which I'm totally fair.
We had fun elements. It's Thin Scara.
Yeah. So
I mean, that guy-
Unfortunately, Scara can't be with us tonight.
this is the type of creativity we want from our viewers. Definitely.
Exactly. I agree. Shout out to Paravine for doing this. Remember to follow the channel, follow the stream, follow the Twitter, follow everyone here's Twitter. Shout out to China Talk, which is going to go live right now. So as soon as you close our browser, you should go watch that, because those guys and girls are awesome. And just thanks for watching. You guys are great. We love you.
Okay, that's going to be enough for tonight then. Thanks a lot for everyone watching, and thanks for our panelists for coming on the show this week. We'll be back the same time next week with more exciting topics to talk about.
Bye-bye. Mwah.